Hey besties, it's Nat, back again with another video on my post-apocalyptic citycore themed island of Tokyo 3. That's right besties, we're back. It has been a minute since I have said those words, but we're back. So welcome back to Tokyo 3, and if you're new, welcome in. My name is Nat, like I said, and we are currently working on my post-apocalyptic citycore themed island based on the anime Neon Genesis Evangelion. You do not have to have seen Evangelion, though, to understand or enjoy this island, and this build in particular is going to be very, just neutral citycore vibes. So if you're here for that, besties, you are in the right place. But this place, currently, is a hot mess. Actually, you know what? Let's go for a little stroll. As you can see, this area is very messy, but it is also very large. It's next to my resident services, and hold on a second. It is also directly below the school, which I built in my last video approximately 7 months ago. So you can check that out. I'll leave that in the card. So today we're going to be filling in the gaps, so to speak, and connecting that build to the bottom half of my island. So that is going to be the plan, besties. Normally with videos like this, because they're so complicated and the builds are just so big and they take up 100% of my brain capacity, I will do an intro like this and then jump into the speed build and then do just a voiceover explaining what I did and then go into the outro. But I think for this video, I'm going to try and do like little check-ins maybe. We'll see how that turns out. But I've explained before how I suddenly forget everything that I was thinking of doing every time I open up OBS. So the builder's block is very real, but I'm going to push through it and we're going to make an amazing build. And I know for a fact that I'm not the only person who is feeling a little bit of Animal Crossing burnout. So if you're in the same boat as me and you happen to have your Switch handy, now might be a good time to grab your Animal Crossing island and maybe spruce some things up. I don't know. But without further ado, you know what to do, besties. Grab yourself a snack, grab yourself something to drink, and let's get right into it. Actually, before we do that, there we go. That's much better. Now we have our full open space to work with. So now that we have all of that out of the way, now we can start the build. Hey there, besties. It's me, VoiceOver Nat, and that means that we're finally in the speed build portion of this speed build video. So welcome in. So happy to have you here. But as I mentioned in the intro, we are currently working on connecting this area to my school build, which I did 7 months ago. So we're working on some pathing and trying to figure out where to put the incline and also what types of levels we want to have. And right now I'm checking the width of the road code that I use on my island. All the codes are in the description, by the way, if you want to check those out. But I was checking how wide that was because one of my goals with this island is to experiment a lot with terraforming and having different levels and layers. So I really wanted to have something running parallel to the road that's on the second level right behind this build. And eventually I swapped out the road code for a train track code that I also used in my train station build, which I will also have linked. And we're about to go visit, actually. I think I'm going to go check it out in a second and see what it looks like from different angles. That is something that if you've been around here for a minute, you know, besties, I love to check my angles. And that is something that I'm going to be doing a lot in this build. I also mentioned in the intro how I've been having major builder's block and haven't been not necessarily inspired by Tokyo 3. Like, I feel very inspired by it in the sense that, like, I want to do builds, but it's just intimidating to me. Like, doing a bunch of builds back to back where I am recreating, like, as much as I can, like, one-to-one scenes from a TV show is really fun and challenging, but also really stressful. Here I am making the train, checking to see if it looks good from one level up, which is where you're going to be looking at it in this part of the build. But as I was saying, doing an island that is based off of something is very stressful for me because I'm a perfectionist and I want everything to look a certain way and to like be as close to the original image as possible, as opposed to this style of building where I'm just sort of like basing it off of what's in my head. So it was actually really refreshing to come back to Tokyo 3 and do a build like this instead of continuing with the school build or trying to do another recreation of a specific scene in the show or a location. It was just nice to like use my imagination a little bit in Animal Crossing, such as right now, where we are using our imagination along with these incredible standee codes, which will also be in the description, to turn a stall and some cube lights into a little train cart. So there you go. And now I'm checking my angles again, besties, because you gotta check your angles. But all of that to say that my approach to the last few builds on this island was very much about using what the game had to offer to directly recreate something, an image from a completely different medium of animation. And in this video, I'm going to be using what the game has to offer to recreate the images that I have in my head, which could be much worse, but I have seen what the end result of this build is like, and I personally think it turned out pretty good. So there you go, little premonition for all of you from me from the future. And speaking of the future, besties, since we last spoke, Nintendo have officially announced the Nintendo Switch 2, which means that it is the perfect time to speculate on the future of Animal Crossing as a series. So throughout the speed build, I'm going to go back and forth between talking about the build and explaining what I'm doing and speculating a little bit on what Animal Crossing has in store for us in the Switch 2's lifespan. I was going to say and beyond, but I don't really, I'm not going to think that far out into the future. But I do have some thoughts and some ideas. And I am curious if any of you are thinking about this or thinking about the next Animal Crossing installment. I'm assuming a lot of you are, because you are watching an Animal Crossing speed build in 2025. But right now, I am moving the train slightly to make a little bit more space that I think I later go back on. I'm pretty sure that I end up widening that pathway, that second level pathway again. But to be fair to me, I was working with a very limited area over here, and unfortunately my plans for like a cute little train station to match the other train station on my island did not go exactly as I had thought because I did not have enough space. Maybe in the future we can come back and tweak this area a little bit. To be honest, I kind of want to do like a Tokyo 3 edits video in the future. Like I want to have a video where I just go back and edit things on my island, and I think that would be a good candidate for a live like build along with me type video. So if you like that type of video, if you prefer that type of video over speed builds, thank you for checking out this speed build anyway, but I do want to do more builds like that in the future. It is just harder for me, especially with this island in particular, to do super complicated stuff like this and also talk about it at the same time, because this took me so many hours to figure out, and there is so much of this that I cut out. All of the times I went to Harv's Island, all the time I went to Treasure Islands, all of the time that I went in my storage, all of the time that I was crafting stuff. Like I cut out a lot of stuff from this, all the time that I was loading into the game, because it takes 80 million years to load into this game. And look at the time. It's time for a live check-in segment. So here we go, besties. I hope you enjoy. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the very first check-in, the New Horizons check-in. I hope you all have been enjoying the build so far. This is what we have, a beautiful little train station, originally a road, but I feel like the train fits a lot better. I want to put an incline around this area down in the bottom left. And I also am thinking about where I want to put the villager houses. Right now, this third level, I think, would make a really cute rooftop. I just have to figure out where I'm going to put the stairs to get up to the villagers' houses, but we'll worry about that in a minute. But I hope you all have been enjoying the speed build so far, and let's get back to the video. All right, besties, how was that? Did you like that? Was that good? I don't know. She was so young and naive. That sweet summer child had no idea what Omnook was gonna put her through with those stairs. I feel like I conceptualized in my mind that I was gonna have the check-ins be like water breaks for all of you, where it's like take a sip of your drink, have a little snack, check in with yourself, maybe stretch a little bit. So I completely forgot to say that in the check-in, or at least in the first one, but I guess do that now. We're not that far into the video, but you're gonna need to stretch, besties. This is like a long haul flight. And the craziest part is, this is a part one. Obviously, this area is going to be much bigger than just this one little square that we're working on today. So in the future, we're gonna like do little transition zones and make it flow with the other areas of the island. And it's gonna be really good. So you should definitely subscribe and hit the little bell to be notified the next time that I upload Tokyo 3 in another 7 months. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna, we're gonna keep it moving with Tokyo 3. And speaking of, we are now grabbing Hazel's house from Tom Nook. I wanted to grab her house kit, one, because she is one of the villagers whose house is getting moved today to this neighborhood, but also because it was super helpful to have the footprint of the house. In fact, in a minute, I'm going to go use the tiles to measure the length and the width of Nook's Cranny and the Able Sisters, so I have an idea of their dimensions for future builds that are going to be in this area of my island. So I was measuring those, but it was super helpful to have Hazel's house kit in my pocket so I could just like drop it down and test it to see if it fit and if the items that I wanted to use would fit around it. I'm also going to do some testing. Oh, here I am measuring the size of those buildings because I wanted to know how big they were so I could put them to the left of this build and have it fit with the sidewalk. But right now I'm testing to see if these wide display stand case things, is that what they're called? They're called the wide display case, I think. But I wanted to test and see if they would fit in front of the house because obviously it disappears when you place the house kit down. So I was just using, whose house is this? Is this Lolly's house? I don't know. Lolly, we'll worry about her later. But I just wanted to test and see what items would fit, what square footage I need to fit them all in, especially in such a small area and with such big items. It is really important to test those things out. And we do eventually place her plot down, but I did a lot of testing first just to make sure I didn't place it down and then have to end up moving it again because it was in the way and I couldn't place the items the way that I wanted to. So there's a little tip for all of you. Use the tools the game gives you to your advantage, even when you're trying to do things that the game absolutely did not intend for you to do. And I know that this is not what the game had in mind because of how much my island lags. So especially towards the end of this video, please forgive the little lag spikes going on. I tried to avoid them when I was recording, but you know, this island, she's got a lot of stuff. So she's going to lag a little bit and hopefully we can deal with that in the future. But the island looks good. So, you know, maybe the lag is worth it, honestly, for an island that looks this cool. But here I am widening the sidewalk. It actually does not end up being this wide at all because the build ends up like encroaching on it more and more because I wanted to make the back bigger so you can see the train better, and I wanted to make the little rooftop areas bigger and all of that stuff. So yeah, this build gets progressively like further down, and eventually I'm honestly kind of concerned about in the future when I have to do the part 2 of this and figure out what to do on the bottom half of this build. But that is a problem for future me. So we don't need to worry about that. We can just chill and hang out and talk about Animal Crossing. The future of Animal Crossing. Look at that, besties. Look at that segue. What did I say? I never lost it. But actually, before we go into that, I just want to mention how I'm pretty sure I lost some footage of me setting up that little apartment block that I was moving around and testing with Hazel's house. But you're going to see later in the video the way that I like construct buildings using all those different items and codes and stuff. And I also ended up, of course, doing stuff off camera and then recreating it for all of you. So once again, I will explain all of that as it goes along to make sure that if you're trying to do a citycore island yourself, that you have all the tools, bestie. You don't have to go through the hours of trial and error that I did. But let's talk about Animal Crossing, because while I was away, Nintendo decided to finally officially announce the Switch 2, which we all knew was on the way, but we have a release date now. We've seen the console. We also know that they're launching it with Mario Kart, which is far and away the most successful Switch game. But the second most successful Switch game is Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is actually a really big change from New Leaf and before, where Animal Crossing was always popular, but it was never like the most popular thing Nintendo was putting out, and that changed with New Horizons. So I do think that is going to impact their future decisions with the series. I specifically think that they are aiming to release the next Animal Crossing game much sooner in the Switch 2's lifespan than New Horizons was released for the Switch, because to be fair, New Horizons did get delayed, so that was more of an issue of like polish. But I definitely think that they're going to want to release the next Animal Crossing within the first year or 2 years of the Switch 2, as opposed to New Horizons, which I think was what was it, 3 years after the Switch launched? I could be wrong about that. I'm just talking, but I definitely think they're going to prioritize releasing a new Animal Crossing because they know that they have a player base who will come to the console for that game. But the question beyond that, beyond them prioritizing Animal Crossing now as one of their like premier titles along Mario and Zelda, which is crazy to say because like those are proper like action adventure type games, platformers, and Animal Crossing is the decorating game. And speaking of decorating, I am going to Tom Nook again to change the outside of Hazel's house to match the area that it's being put in. So I went with this white siding, this sort of futuristic siding, and then the door with the circular window, and then of course the metal roof. And I eventually changed the metal roof to be a darker color. I went with like the mid-tone gray, but I kind of want to switch it to the black, honestly, just because there's a lot of black and gray accents in this area. And so I feel like the darker roof would pop more, but you'll see it later in the video. So don't worry about that right now. Let's get back to talking about Animal Crossing next game.
Did somebody say next game? Yeah, let me load up.
Yes, that's definitely what they should call it. But as I said, the only thing that I'm truly certain of is that Nintendo is definitely going to prioritize Animal Crossing more than they may have in the past. But I'm interested to see what about it they choose to prioritize, besides obviously the release date and probably marketing as well. Because as much as you and I love Animal Crossing New Horizons, I mean, look at what I'm doing right now. As much as we love this game, and as much as this game is very celebrated and beloved by the general public, a lot of like diehard old head Animal Crossing fans, honestly myself included, I am technically one of those fans because I've been playing since GameCube. A lot of those fans are not happy with the direction that the games have been going since New Leaf. I remember very vividly back in the day, before New Horizons was even teased, when people were speculating on the next Animal Crossing game, and they spoke negatively about New Leaf's focus on creativity and customization, and were like, the villagers, their dialogue is boring, their personalities aren't as good as in the older games. And now people say that about New Horizons and talk about New Leaf as though it's the classic game that New Horizons wishes it was. And I just think it's very interesting, the switch up that happened there. Though to be fair, New Leaf doesn't have a lot of features that this game is missing. But I definitely think that they're going to keep it going in this direction. I don't think that they're going to roll back and do like a remake of a classic Animal Crossing game. Not necessarily that they won't touch those games ever again, but I definitely think that this is the direction that the series is going in. And I'm just curious, like, to what degree, like what level of customization are we going to get next? And will it mean that those life sim aspects only get less and less attention? Or will the newfound popularity of Animal Crossing sort of encourage Nintendo to be even more ambitious and to add more instead of sort of stripping things back, if that makes sense? Hopefully it did, because we are about to go into another check-in. I'm curious what past me was thinking as she was doing this. She has a long way to go. So, God rest her soul. I hope that she drinks her water. Whatever beverage you have, bestie, take a sip. Hi everyone, welcome to check-in number 2. I don't actually remember what I said in check-in number 1, so hopefully I don't repeat myself too much. But I feel like I'm making good progress. I'm a little mentally fried right now from figuring this out, but I think it's going well. So I'm gonna jump down to the bottom layer and we can talk about what we've made so far. This is the facade of the little apartment complex. This is the place where I think I'm going to put the stairs, though I am worried about the front of it being kind of plain and flat. So I'm considering putting the stairs in the back, and I'll show y'all where I'm thinking of putting them in a second. But I will say I do really like this little apartment on the left. So hopefully I can replicate that on the right, but in like a different way. But back here, of course, is the train station. And honestly, I think some stairs would work back here too. So we'll see what I end up going with, but wish me luck, besties. And we're back. Welcome back to the present, I guess. Or maybe if you're watching this, you'll watch this after I record it. So it's the past for you still, but just a different past. Anyways, I hope you liked that little intermission. Again, like I said, I want y'all to take a breather while you're watching the videos because they are speed builds. So, you know, maybe it's nice to take a moment and watch something that's not at 5 times speed. But we were talking about Animal Crossing, and I am afraid that the new game will repeat some of the mistakes that New Horizons made simply because it got away with making those mistakes because of the time it was released and what it did have to offer people, which wasn't nothing necessarily, but like, you know, so much stuff came out in updates, and they were free updates, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it took so long for the game to be done. I just hope that the new game has the features that were in this game at launch, because the fact that stuff like diving that was in New Leaf at launch was not in New Horizons at launch was very bizarre, especially for a game that got delayed. So, you know, that's my only true hope, I guess, is that the worst mistakes of New Horizons don't get repeated. I understand, you know, whether or not the game is focused on the life sim aspects or the decorating aspects, that's more of an artistic choice, but whether or not your game has all of the same features as the previous game at launch, that's less of an artistic choice. So hopefully they can get it together in time. But I was really struggling with these houses. I don't know what compelled me to even think about placing those houses not symmetrically or in line with each other. I was gonna make them like offset. Why would I do that? That would make me so mad every time I looked at my island map and I saw Hazel's house like a little bit further back than Peachtree's house. By the way, Peachtree is the other villager who is going to be in this video. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. But Peachtree and Hazel are supposed to be Ritsuko and Misato. So for all you Ava heads out there. Oh, there we go. There's Peachtree. And we're giving her house a little makeover as well. But I ended up putting her house on the left side and also grabbing an incline. I put her house on the left side because that house has like the big antenna and like the science stuff. And then Hazel's house ended up going on the right. And it ends up being a little bit obstructed. You'll see at the end of the build. You know what that was? That was an artistic choice, besties. Just like me putting the staircase in the back, because as I mentioned in the update portion, the check-in, I was worried about the spacing in the front. First of all, there's the lack of space. There is very little space up front, but also because I really wanted it to be dynamic looking, I guess. Oh, here I was testing the fences. Eventually, I did have to remove the fence because you couldn't get into Hazel's house. But I wanted it to be three-dimensional. That's the word. I wanted it to have dimension to it. Ooh, we're going to put the house down now. For real? Are we doing it? Yes, we did it. And I time traveled to see the house, and I forgot to pay for the staircase. I remember this very vividly. Also, the speech bubble, the moving bubble appeared, which is also how I knew that I would get to do a villager hunting stream after this video goes up. So if you're watching this the weekend it goes up, there's a chance that I will be villager hunting right around the time you're seeing this. So be on the lookout for that. Look at that plug, besties. What did I say? I never lost it. But we're adding Peachtree's house here as well. So now we'll have both houses in the mix. And I waited a while to place them down. I'm stuck. I waited a while to place them down just because I wanted to make sure that I had everything in the right spot. Look at them go. These two divas. Oh, I love them so much. I wanted to make sure that everything was placed before I put them down. So I didn't have to like move around like big pieces of furniture and try to maneuver them in between the houses. But after I had that figured out and I sort of had an idea of what I was going to do, then I put them down because it is just helpful to have them there for the visual reference of like, what is this going to look like? So yeah, that is what's going on. As I mentioned, I wanted the front of this to be really 3D and sort of pop out and not just be a flat wall of simple panels, which is why I put the stairs at the back. That and, of course, the space issue that we're having, as well as that dimensionality. Ooh, vocab word. Ooh, cuteness. Oh, they're so adorable. Look at them go. They're so fit. Look at them with their little tracksuits on. Oh, I love them so much. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that the front of the build was interesting to look at, and that unfortunately meant that the stairs were not going to fit because they were going to take up too much space. And you know what's funny is that looking at this, what you're seeing right now, I kind of miss how this looks. I like how the finished product of the build looks, but this happens like every single time I make a speed build like this and I go back and I look at the footage and I'm like, that looked really good. Why did you get rid of that? So I guess let me know in the comments if you like how it looked before or if you like the finished product. I actually do think that the finished version of this build is very interesting and cool. Here we are, speaking of interesting and cool, here we are working on the train again. I really jumped back and forth during this build between like the different areas that I was working on, so I apologize for the randomness at times of like, oh, she's working on that, oh, she's working on that. That is how my brain works. So normally I will try to like control that impulse a little bit and build in a way that makes sense for the purpose of the video. But this time I was so out of practice of filming a speed build that I just sort of did it. I just made the build and I filmed it, and this is the result. So I hope that it is useful to you in some way, or at least enjoyable. I do want to talk more specifically about things that I think are going to happen in the next Animal Crossing game, but I'll talk a little bit about the train station first. I'm using these fence items that I used in my original train station build, and I was debating whether I wanted to have some sort of like guardrail on the side of the stairs, and I ended up not putting anything over there, not even a fence. I experimented with the fence, but at the end of the day, the train is the most interesting part of this whole area, so I wanted to highlight that, and having something in front of it, even if it makes like logical sense, just was not the vibe. It was not my vibe. So you know what is my vibe? Is simple panels to cover up the dirt walls, which is part of the reason why my island lags so much, but it's okay because it's worth it for the vibes, as we discussed. Here I am discovering the horror that I cannot put the blue steel staircase directly next to resident services like I originally planned. So this next portion of the video is going to be me figuring out where I do want to put the staircase. And luckily we did find a pretty good solution for that. But in the meantime, since we just discussed Animal Crossing more generally and, you know, what Nintendo's plans for the franchise likely are, I want to talk more specifically about things that I think the next game is going to have. And if we're continuing on the track that we're currently on with New Horizons being about building an entire island, I think it only makes sense that the next game is going to have that level of player control, but only advanced even more. And I think that Happy Home Paradise is actually like a good sort of test run for whatever the next game is going to be like. Ooh, look at the cute little weed that's growing up out of the ground. This is a post-apocalyptic island, so I tried to plant little weeds and things, and there is some poking up out of the road that we're going to mess with later. But yeah, I definitely think that if they brought over features that were originally in Happy Home Designer that weren't in New Leaf to New Horizons, then they're definitely going to bring Happy Home Paradise features to the main game next go around. But those features are also like really powerful, so I'm curious to see how they balance that. I honestly think it would be really cool if they took advantage of the grid system that the game already uses to have like a bird's eye view build tool. So basically you like go into bird's eye view like you do in Happy Home Paradise and edit an entire area of your island at once. I don't even know if it's going to be an island. It'll probably be like a town or even a city. That'd be kind of cool. The last time we had cities in Animal Crossing was right now, besties. The last time we had cities properly in the game was sort of New Leaf, but it was really City Folk, where you could actually travel to a different place, and it was meant to have like a different vibe to it than your Animal Crossing town. And I think one of the things that's cool about this game is that you start in like a very rural space in a way that you never have before in Animal Crossing, where there isn't any development at all and you build your island up. And so I think it would be cool if the options to build your island up were even more like grand and I guess drastic compared to your starting point, because I feel like that would, one, give players more options for customizing their space, and two, would fit really well with the themes of the game and it make it feel like a natural sequel to New Horizons. But here I am doing exactly what I said I would and going back on the moving the train. I needed to widen that path a little bit, but it looks a lot better. And now we are messing with some different height items. I really wanted to add some more height to this build because I want like lateral dimensionality. Does that make sense? Is that real words? I don't know. But I wanted bump outs like on the sides, but I also wanted the build to have like a lot of height to it to make it feel like a real city. And the scaffolding is one of the tallest items in the game, but it was also hard to put it in a spot that made sense and looked good. So I'm messing with that now. And eventually I am going to put it on the side of the house, I think, just to add a little bit of extra oomph on that side. Definitely think about that if you're building a city core island. Like, how can I make this as tall as possible? Because I feel like this style that we're working with now is very antithetical to what Animal Crossing New Horizons wants to be. So you are fighting against the game to make your island look like this with the lag and with the items we have available. And I feel like making your build sort of unnaturally tall kind of fits with that aesthetic really well. But as I was saying, I think it would be really cool if the next game gave us more options for how to expand the town or the island or whatever it ends up being. And that includes bringing back the customization options from New Leaf, where you could change the exterior of the town buildings. If you didn't already know, in New Leaf, you play a character who was invited to the town to be the mayor. And Isabelle is like your assistant, and she helps you with all of your mayoral duties. And that includes editing the town, like building bridges and inclines and what they called public works projects, which were like decorations, essentially that game's version of outdoor furniture. And that also included changing the exterior style of the town's buildings. Ooh, here I am using my road code to sort of surround the weeds and make it look like there's like a crack in the road where there's weeds growing through. I just think that's such a fun thing to do for an island with this theme. And I was really happy I was able to do it in this area of the island. But yes, as I was saying, New Leaf gave you the option to choose between like a futuristic theme and like a fairy tale sort of theme. And obviously in this game, you can change your house's exterior, but we just don't have the level of options that we had in New Leaf. And it's really disappointing that you can only apply them to your house and not to the other buildings on the island, like the Able Sisters or the town hall. So I really hope that they add that back in to a future game where we can customize everything about the island, including things that we have to have in order for it to function. Right now, I'm actually working on, speaking of futuristic buildings, besties, I'm working on playing with perspective a little bit. I'm not particularly good at this, I don't think, but one trick I have figured out is using a simple panel code where the windows and doors are smaller. So it looks like the building is farther away, or it's like a different size than the other buildings. Like it's like tucked behind these buildings where we have like the bigger windows in the front. So, you know, just a little trick from me to you. You're welcome. As though I was the one who figured this out or is the one who invented it. You know I'm not the one who invented it because I didn't design that beautiful code. But yeah, definitely add little bump outs like this with smaller fake buildings, or at least fake buildings that look like they're further away. And I also recommend turning around the wide display stand. So instead of having just like a flat wall, it has a little like sliver of glass at the top, because that can light up at night. There's like a light inside of the object and it looks really, really cool. So definitely recommend doing that for your City Core Islands besties. And we're going to work on another bump out here in a moment. I wanted to add a little bit more dimension to this build. And I'm also going to pay for the stairs next to the resident services, or I'm sorry, one tile to the right of the resident services. But after we do that, we're going to time travel, and then Peanut is going to teach me a reaction, and then we're going to work a little bit more on the train station area. But back to complaining about things that they forgot to bring over from New Leaf besties. If there's one feature that every New Leaf player wanted back in New Horizons that they did not add, it was definitely Tortimer Island. If you don't know, Captain used to take you to Tortimer Island where you could fish and catch really rare bugs and make a lot of money, and more importantly, you could play mini games online with your friends. It was super, super fun. The mini games were really great. There were like different like catching bugs and fish, and there was hide and seek, and there was you could hit Tortimer with a hammer and all of these fun little mini games, and they never added that to New Horizons. And like the online multiplayer ended up being a huge part of this game. Once again, Nintendo could not have predicted how that would go, but at least like, why did they not add it in an update? Like, I don't understand. Like it's so fun and everybody loved it, and they were just like, nah, you're not getting that this time around. So hopefully we do get it the next time around, because I really miss Tortimer Island, and it made the multiplayer aspects way more fun, where you didn't have to make up your own fun, and the game actually provided games for you to play with your friends. Thank you all for coming to my Tortimer Island rant. I really appreciate it. And we're going to talk about the build again for a second. I added that stadium light for the same reason as I added the scaffolding, which was to add some height to the build. I ended up getting rid of that, but right now we're going to add another bump out over on this side, and we're going to build another mini skyscraper, this time using a different little window code, mostly just to have some variation on the colors. So it's not just like one gray section and one white section. I wanted them to be mixed up a little bit. But this is when the build really turned around for me, where I was like, I understand what I have to do now. I understand how I want this to look. And I was really proud of how it turned out. I really love how asymmetrical it ended up being. And I feel like even though it's asymmetrical, the weight of the build is still correct. Like it's still balanced on both sides. And I also think that once we add more parts to this area of the island, it'll look even more balanced, because I don't want the two sides of the build to look exactly the same or like mirror each other, but I do want them to have the same visual weight as each other. So right now we are working on building the skyscraper. I'm working on the 3rd level. And another thing that I tried to do with this was I didn't want it to look like a cake, because as you know, in this game, all of your levels have to be built on top of each other, where the next level is slightly smaller. So it has to have that one tile around in order for you to build. But that makes all of your builds look like a cake if you just follow the guidelines that the game sort of sets out for you. So I tried to add little bump outs on other levels and have some parts be flat and other parts be like sticking out to sort of hide that cake appearance, I guess. And I think it turned out pretty good. It added the height that I wanted. It added the 3D effect that I wanted. One unfortunate side effect, obviously, is that Hazel's house is now obscured from view for most of the time. But she can still get to her house and you can get to her house. So it's still functional. It's just like I was working very close up to the house. And that is also part of the reason why this build had to keep extending down further and further. So I had room to build in front of the houses. And I am nervous about the second part of this build, where we work on the other side of the street of below this build, because we don't have a lot of space. So we're going to have to get pretty creative with what we come up with over there. But you know what? That is a problem for future me. So we're not going to worry about that right now. I am actually pretty sure that current me that you're watching in this video was worrying about how she was going to finish this build now that I had figured out this little skyscraper, because obviously I was very proud of it. But this like middle area here where the vending machine is, and like this entire first story, I was really unsure of how I wanted it to look. And this was the part where I ended up taking the Switch out of the dock and figuring some stuff out off camera, and then coming back and re-recording that stuff after I had sorted it out. Because unfortunately, if I didn't do that, this build would have taken me so much longer, and I would also have so much more footage I had to sort through. So I am glad that I sort of gave myself a break, and you know, I got to get a little cozy and I got to figure stuff out at my own pace and like pick the game up and put it back down until I had something that I was satisfied with. So, you know, obviously I'm recording these to post on YouTube, but if you're building an island right now that's been taking you forever and you just do it little like piece by piece, there is nothing wrong with that, besties. It took me 3 years to finish my first island, and at this rate, it's going to take me 3 years to finish this island. So there is nothing wrong with taking your time, with being a little indecisive, because you can always change things and go back and edit things to be to your liking. And, you know, even though it took me 3 years to finish Nautilus, I think that island turned out pretty good. And honestly, after doing this build, I have that confidence now about Tokyo 3 that like I can finish it and make it look as cool as I have it in my head, which, you know, that's a pretty good feeling to have. If you were to ask me what current me's worries are, what her concerns are, I would say one, that I am clearly losing my voice as this voiceover goes on. Hopefully I still have it by the end. And two, that I'm pretty sure I forgot to do a final check-in. At least I don't think I saw a final check-in when I was originally editing this footage, which took me forever, by the way, because like I said, I have to cut out all the times I go to Harv's Island, all the times I go to my storage, all that stuff. So in the event of that happening, maybe I'll insert like a little fake last check-in so y'all can have a breather and we can discuss probably how I was feeling as I was doing this. I'll probably insert that right before the time jump from when I was experimenting off camera, so I can like check in between those two sections. But this honestly is one of those moments where I was looking back at the build and what I had done previously, and I was like, that's really cute. Why did you change that? Why'd you get rid of that? I really love the laundry sticking out, and I really love the AC units. We did end up putting those on one of the rooftops, which we're going to work on a little bit later. But this was about the point where my brain had kind of tapped out, and she was like, girl, you are going to spend forever in a day figuring out which color combination of drink machines you want to put in this build. You have to take the Switch out of the dock and figure this out on your own. And that is what I did. But in the meantime, before we get to that point, how about we go back to complaining? Go back to discussing and theorizing about the next Animal Crossing. That's more like it. Ooh, and we can do it at night. Look at this. I wanted to build at night a little bit so I could see how the build looks when it's all lit up. I'm actually pretty sure I'm going to upload the dream address for this island during the daytime, but I thought it would be cool to check out what the island looks like at night, and for all of you to see it, especially the train, which is one of my favorite parts. But yes, back to speculating about Animal Crossing. As we discussed, I definitely want the Tortimer Island games back, and I definitely want more customization options for the island and just like a bigger scope, because if we're going to be going down the creativity and decorating path, then I want to have more options. And I hope that besides like obvious quality of life stuff, like being able to craft things and customize things faster, I hope that there are more options for how we can customize things. I really hope that they add back in some of the new leaf furniture that they didn't add to New Horizons, like the rest of the sloppy set and some of the other, I guess, vintage Animal Crossing furniture sets. I really, really love the, what is it, the neutral set? I don't remember what it's called, but I loved that set so much and I used it so much in my New Leaf house. You can actually see my New Leaf house. I'll link that video as well. I haven't talked about that video in a minute. But I really hope they add back in more of those items. And I also hope that they expand the crafting feature. Actually, recently we have been playing a little bit of My Sims on the channel. We've been streaming the My Sims games and I love those games so much. I played them as a kid, and that game also has a crafting feature where you can make furniture, but it's a lot more detailed than the Animal Crossing version is, where you can like change the shape and the design of the furniture. And I think it would be really cool if we had more customization options with the furniture in this game. I would love if there was like a way to combine furniture, maybe. I don't know, maybe that's a little too ambitious, but like putting things closer together, like you could put a cushion on top of a chair, or you could put, I don't know, a little rubber duck in the corner of a bathtub. And we can kind of sort of mess with that a little bit now, but it would just be nice if we had more options. And I would also love if we could use custom designs for more stuff, because they added so many different templates for custom designs in this game, like the little flag or like the standees that we're using to make the train. So hopefully they add a couple more of those so that the custom design creators have even more options when they're thinking of ways they can use their designs. And speaking of the train, actually, this is probably my like craziest wish list item, but I would love if this game had actual vehicles. Now, I don't actually think we're going to be able to like drive around our island or our town, but it would be really cool if there was more like kinetic stuff happening on an island. Like, you know, those carnival items that they added in the 2.0 update? I love those so much. And I wish that there was like more movement that you could add. So you could add like a train set that like moves, so you can see a train moving on your island, or adding like cars that move and sort of like a set pattern. I just think that would be really cool. So those are some more of my wish list items. Right now, I'm working on a little fake building over here that is sort of acting as a buffer in between the road and the beach, which is very close. I want to make it look sort of like a tunnel that your car is driving into, but that was one of those things where I started working on it and then I was like, this is something for the next video. This is something for me in the future to figure out, just like how I figured out that string light blocks the door to both of their houses, so I had to get rid of that. But here we are sort of coming to kind of the final design for this area before I go to the time skip. I wanted to add a little bit more dimension to the front of the build, and the stall ended up being so perfect. I put those two VCRs in there, so it sort of looks like a window of like an electronics shop maybe, which is perfect for Tokyo 3, because even though it takes place in like 2015, it's kind of frozen in time in the late 90s, so that is like the perfect level of technology for this city. And then after this, we're gonna go back to the train station and we're gonna add some cars and trucks on the road behind the train station to sort of emphasize the different levels that are going on, and it looks really, really cool at night with the like the lights of the cars and of the train. And then after that, we're gonna go to daytime again, and then we're gonna go to the time skip. So maybe I'll insert the fake check-in / intermission in between the daytime and the nighttime sections. Oh my god, it's Wisp. And then we'll go into the last bit of me trying to figure stuff out, and I'll talk a little bit more about Animal Crossing, and I'll talk a little bit more about life stuff, and then we'll be done with the video. But for now, y'all can just enjoy this beautiful view, and we'll go over to the check-in. Hi, editing Nat here, coming to you live from the Shinji and Kaoru gay piano room, recording this fake check-in because I forgot to record an actual check-in while I was building. Probably because this is the point where I started to get a little overwhelmed and had to do some stuff off camera, but it turned out pretty cool, and I'm going to show you guys that in a second. But for now, take a little sip of your drink, maybe do a little stretch. Thank you for making it this far into the video, and I will see you all again in a second. And we're back, and it's daytime, and we're working on the front of the build again. How was that? Did you guys enjoy the check-ins? I do like taking little breaks throughout the video, but I completely forgot to record that last check-in, and I probably should have recorded more of them, to be honest, but maybe we'll try them again in the future. I don't know. I do like mixing them in with the speed builds, but right now I am figuring out that I want to add another skyscraper to this building. I just needed to break up the wall of white buildings a little bit more and add some height in the middle of the build, even though I did like having that sort of clear pathway where you can see the second level with the little fence in front. I do think that this ended up looking a lot better, but I'm going to try and figure that out, and that is the point where I was like, okay, girl, you need to do this off camera because this is getting a little complicated, and we are going to jump to that in a second. But I guess for now, I'll try to wrap up my thoughts on what I think the next Animal Crossing game is going to be like. Obviously, as we get more information, I will be talking about that in the speed builds going forward. But even though I expect them to add a lot more creative tools to the game to sort of streamline the building and decorating process, at the end of the day, this is not The Sims. As much as I love The Sims, besties, you know I love a little Sims. This is Animal Crossing, and part of the game's formula, I guess, is that tediousness that people kind of dislike about it. Like, you have to play every day and it's in real time and you have to craft things one by one. I mean, hopefully they get rid of the crafting things one by one in the next game, but you get my point. And I feel like the way that they can pull that off, where they give us more creative tools but also keep it feeling like Animal Crossing, is if it just takes time to unlock that stuff. Like, if I'm able to build in like a bird's eye view, ooh, look at that. Speaking of building, this is the time skip where I figured out what I was actually trying to do. But in order to unlock a tool like that, I would hope that you would have to put a lot of hours into the game and really engage with it. Like how in New Leaf, you had to actually befriend your villagers before they would recommend different public works projects that you could unlock and then add to your island. So I hope that they have some sort of system like that where you have more options for customizability, but you still have to work for them. I think that is the way that it'll still feel like Animal Crossing, but give us more of that creative side of the gameplay without sacrificing what makes Animal Crossing unique. So that is my little speech, I guess. I hope you all enjoyed it. This is definitely not the last time we'll speculate on the new Animal Crossing game, but let me know down below if you have any wishlist items that you really want in the next game. I'm really curious what y'all are looking forward to them adding. But we are adding the last touches to the build, adding some citycore decorations. And funnily enough, I actually went back again after I finished recording and changed a bunch of the colors of these items. So in the final footage during the outro, the colors will be different, but the items themselves will be the same. So just a heads up there. But we're now working on the little rooftop area for the different houses. And I really struggled with this part because of the stupid dirt walls that I don't like because they don't fit my vibes. They're not citycore vibes, it's dirt vibes. And I don't want dirt vibes on my island because this is a citycore island, not a dirt core island. So that annoys me to no end, but I did figure out a solution, and I ended up sort of prioritizing the rooftop on the left. So the view from that rooftop is slightly better than the one on the right, but there is still access to that rooftop. I'm going to add a little ladder, but I do think it was for the best that I prioritized the view from the house on the left as opposed to the one on the right, just so that there was one view that was good and didn't have the dirt. So there you go. And then after we're done with that, we're going to work on the tunnel that the train is supposed to be going into, because much like with the road at the front of the build, we are very close to the beach. So I had to get really creative with how to cover that up and make it make logical sense, I guess. But we're going to work on that, and then we're going to change Petrie's roof color, and then we're going to be done with the build. So once again, thank you all so much for making it this far. And I guess for this last bit, I'll talk a little bit about life stuff because once again, this video is 7 months in the making. It did not take me 7 months, and I have joked before about how I'm very concerned with Tokyo 3 that I'm going to have to like take the entire island and push it slightly to the left or like slightly down or just like one tile over. And luckily, we avoided that fate for now. We did not have to do that for this build. This build just took me a while because I honestly was burnt out with Tokyo 3, and I think I was overwhelmed by having to do so many exact recreations back to back to back and like basing it directly off of Evangelion, and being able to do like a more generic citycore build and just sort of be creative was honestly really refreshing and a lot of fun, and really reinvigorated my love for Animal Crossing. And I'm really grateful for all of you and your patience with me in getting this build out. So I hope you all enjoyed it. And I hope that if you're having a little bit of trouble getting back into Animal Crossing, that maybe this could be a little bit of inspiration for you. But speaking of videos, I did get some videos out in the meantime, and one of them was a Happy Home Paradise video where I did a story time about how I met Shaq in the elevator at the mall on my way to see the movie Conclave. So if you're interested in that, besties, I will have that linked as well. There's going to be a lot of links. So I do apologize for sending y'all every which way after you watched this video, but I figured since we haven't done a Tokyo 3 video in a hot minute, it would make sense to check in with everyone and let you guys know what I have been up to since that last video. And actually, last month, to celebrate my birthday, so happy birthday to me, besties, we did another charity live stream, this time raising money for Trans Lifeline, and we toured everybody's Happy Home Paradise builds, and it was so fun, and everyone's builds were so amazing, and y'all raised $400 for Trans Lifeline on that live stream. I am continually blown away by how kind and generous this community is, and I'm so thankful to all of you. So if you were at the stream, if you chatted, if you liked the stream, if you donated, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I am so grateful for you, and we're definitely going to do another charity stream touring people's Animal Crossing stuff in the near future, in the next couple of months. So be on the lookout for that, besties. I think we're going to do a Dream Address tour stream next, so get excited for that. I'm so excited to see how y'all's islands have progressed in the year since I have last done Dream Address tours. But if you don't want to miss out on that or any other streams or videos in the future, make sure to hit subscribe and hit the little bell to be notified every time I post or go live over here on my YouTube. It is completely free, and it just helps let you know when new videos go up so you can keep track of my spotty upload schedule. But we will be streaming this weekend. We're going to be doing a villager hunt, so be on the lookout for that. And besides Happy Home Paradise, we have a couple of other games that we've been streaming. We have to finish My Sims, we have to finish Harvest Moon, and I really do want to go back to The Sims 2 and The Sims 1. The Sims 2 stream was pretty tragic. We had a lot of save corruption issues. Rest in peace, Donnie Rats. Rest in peace, Brat family. Rest in peace, imposter Brat family. But I would like to return to the game, hopefully, after it has been patched. And I want to try The Sims 1. I played that game when I was a kid, and it is crazy, but it's a lot of fun. So maybe we'll do a Sims 1 stream in the near future. But we are just about at the end of the build. I just placed down that little mini simple panel next to that scaffolding to sort of add, once again, besties, a little bit more dimension and make that side building pop a little bit more. And I think it looks really good. And I also added this lost book. I don't know whose that is, and we're never going to know. So it's just going to stay on the ground. And now I'm adding in like cars and scooters, and those are the things that are going to change color in the outro. So don't be alarmed, besties. I just had a little crisis of the colorways of all of the items in this build. But you know, it wouldn't be a New Horizons speed build without a little bit of indecisiveness now, wouldn't it? And speaking of indecisiveness, we are about to go change Petrie's roof color to a darker color. And I ended up going with the gray, but I still kind of want to see what it would look like with the black roof. So if that changes in the future, besties, now you know why. But here we are at the end with the finished build. I hope you all like it. I think it turned out pretty cute. And I think Lolly thinks the same. But obviously this is the front of the build, and this is the area that we're going to be working on in part 2 of this video. So remember, hit the bell, hit subscribe, so you'll be alerted when that video goes up. But so far, I think this area looks really, really cute. I really like all of the different buildings and the decorations, and I think it's going to look really cool when we add more neighborhood over to the sides and to this below area where I'm standing now. And let's move on over to the back of the build with our beautiful train station. I am so happy with how this came out. I'm so glad I was able to add another little train station area on my island. And I am really pleased with all of the levels going on back here with the cars and the train and the rooftop areas. And I'm really glad that we were able to complete this part of the build and then have the rest of the build as sort of continuing on into the next couple of videos. So let me know down below which area of the build is your favorite. I think for me right now, the train station is my favorite, but that could very well change in the next couple of videos. But thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to leave a like. It really helps me out. And if you really like this video, you can subscribe and hit the little bell to be notified every time I post or go live. I also want to thank my extra besties, especially Sarah, Kaylee Westbrook, and Bella. Thank you so much for being members. If you didn't know, I do have channel memberships here. You can pay $2 a month and you get extra videos and live streams. It's completely optional, but it's just a little way to support the channel and get something out of it. So if you're interested, all of that information is on my channel page. And for all of the besties, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all again in the next video. Bye, besties.